Well, welcome to another episode of What's Broke Today. That our victim today is a Grasshopper front mount mower. That's a model 721. That what we've got here is when he kicks the blades on, he's got noise up here in the deck. So we're gonna take things apart and do an inspection and see if we can figure out where the noise is coming from. So what I've done, and I don't know if you can see my face, but the main thing is you see this. I took the belt cover off, the plate that comes over the top. I jacked the deck up and actually put a jack stand in the front and center to support it, and got the floor jack out of the way. That way I can reach underneath here. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to take the, if I can get her to turn, is take the belt off here. Now I already think I can see where our problem is because I got movement there. And what I'm doing here is I'm reaching underneath and I'm just grabbing the end of the blade. I'm just raising it up and down, and I can see it moving. Same thing over here. I'm going to grab the blade, and that one moves a lot. I bet you that's got over 1/8 of an inch at the pulley. And then before I started the camera, I took the 4 nuts off of these bolts so I could lift the drive off for this one has one of those bagging systems. So of course it's got the extra pulley and the coupler here that goes down on that left or right hand side. Because I wanted to, at minimum, spin that. And this one, maybe a little bit of noise, but it is tight. And I get that out of the way. And that black piece is spline, and it slides down over this geared tooth on top of the right hand pulley. And that's made out of a plastic material. So just in case you get some up in that blower and lock it up, it will strip out that piece of plastic. And then here, get the belt off of this side. And the belt's got some wear, but that belt looks good. And that idler pulley, I spin it. It's got a little bit of noise, but it is tight. That one's got a little more noise, but it feels good. And then this is our gearbox that drives. And look at the drive shaft back here. Other than gearbox pretty tight, but it's getting loose back there in the slip joint of the drive shaft. And then this one over here, that don't have hardly any movement. I spin it, just a little bit of noise. Yeah, a little more noise. And a lot of noise. So we'll start out and then pay attention, like these washers, they're cupped washers that go on top of here. And then I'll just start pulling this apart and I'm going to put the bolt back down in the hole. There's 2 ways of doing this, and when I take it apart, I don't pull these housings off the deck unless I have to. So I just put the bolt back down in the hole, and I'll start out with big punch, big hammer, and I'll hit this just lightly. And that'll start sliding down, and then a little bit more, and then we get the pulley, which looks okay, and then there's a little spacer underneath, and I'm gonna bet that this has had bearings put in it before, because there's a little groove here that matches up pretty good with the top of that shaft. And then I'll just pull this all out through the bottom, and of course there's part of a bearing. And I'll look at this shaft, and it's got some rust on it, but it looks, I mean, fairly good. Now this one, the lower bearing, seems to be our bad bearing. So I'm going to take my punch and, well, here, I'll knock the bearing out and I'll show you where I was hitting. Because I never take these apart. I'm going to put in a new bearing regardless. So, but this used to be a dust shield that was on the bottom side. And I was taking my punch, and now, when that all goes together, this bearing comes up from the bottom. The sleeve is in between, on top, in between the bottom bearing and the top bearing. So that way when you tighten everything down, you don't put lateral stress on the bearing. And this one, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but the bearing has, you know, that's loose, not to mention, let's put it on my thumb. You hear it's noisy. And yeah, not a whole lot of grease left. I'm almost betting this washer wasn't supposed to be there. So something is worn, causing us to have extra space. Yeah, that seems okay. That looks okay, but I'll take this side apart. Now this, normally this belt comes through there pretty easy, but this is, you know, this is a 93, so there's rust in here, which has pushed that out. And normally changing the belt, you don't have to worry about it. I have to end up bending that up usually, but I'll do the same thing there, because you don't want to beat right on the end of the shaft, because you end up flaring it out, then it won't go down through. Okay, and then there's that pulley, and see, this shows you where things are different. See, this belt was running on the top of here, and come around here, and this pulley has the, you know, the difference between the two is, see, that has the sticking down along with a spacer. So we'll have to check, make sure this looks like more than should be there, but I'll get around and pull the parts. You take the number off the deck, which should be back here, and you can look it up. I talk about that bearing, I can wiggle it and see how loose that upper bearing is. You can see all the rust and discoloration. I'll clean that up. You know, to physically look at it, it looks like there's wear, but I don't feel a groove or nothing. So we'll have to clean that up. And why I say you don't use a pressure washer is this little seal that goes on the side of the bearing is a dust seal. It will not keep out high pressure water. I mean, even your garden hose can blow water past and onto that and get that bearing. And it wasn't 10 minutes. Because once it started moving, it came on right up out of there. So, and there is some grease in there, so it wasn't totally out of grease. But yeah, I'll say that bearing is, yeah, this inner race and outer race have just extremely too much play. That bearing ain't too bad, but it's going to get changed. And that's how I get them out of there. And off camera, I'm going to clean everything up, do an inspection, and depending on what I find, I may tape a little bit to show you what I found. But I got to clean all the old grease and clean the insides of these out and get all the old stuff that's in there gone. So we go back together, everything's clean. And of course, these already do have grease fittings, and I'm sure they work, but I'm gonna go ahead and put the grease gun on it and run some grease through and purge that port just to make sure, and then make a parts list. Okay, got all my parts. So one of the last things I want to do is I need to clean up the rest of what's in the housing, and there's leftover grease and bits of bearing. So I've got this is actually out of a kit I got at Harbor Freight for cleaning a paint gun. You know, big floppy end with some stiff bristles back here, and I just stick it down in there and just take a little brake clean and work it in a circle and get everything broke free. And pull that out, and yep, and we come out pretty clean. And of course I put a drain pan underneath to catch what's coming off so it's not on my driveway. And now all we're going to do is just let that dry. And I'll wipe it out some too. So I've already done the outside too, so we're in good shape there. Now, of course, I want to make sure there's nothing in the ports where the grease goes through, so we'll go ahead and yeah, not terribly bad. Yeah, I've got all the dirty stuff out. Alright, and last two there wasn't too much in there. Now I get ready to put the new bearings in. I got the good old, kind of like you get at Harbor Freight, the race driver kit. And of course I got new bearings. And what I want to do is find the one of these that fits the bearing the best, so I'm driving on this outer lip and not on the center. If you start beating on the center, you might as well throw that bearing away, because you're pretty much going to ruin it. So, and that one fits real good. Okay, now when it comes to putting our shafts back in, we got to get them cleaned up too. And these use the fiber washers on the blades, and of course this one's not too bad, but I got fiber washers stuck to the bottom of the shaft, so I'll just use my knife and scrape that one off. Or you could take it to a wire wheel and clean it up. And then of course where we got the rust, I'm just going to take some sandpaper and I get that cleaned up. I'll wipe it off, and then the goal is want to get where the bearings slide nice and smooth on and off there. One thing you got to decide is, do I plan on greasing it, or am I just going to put it together and ride? Because if you're going to put it together and not grease it, you're good to go. But we're going to grease this one, so I'm going to take one side and take my knife. I'm going to pop the dust shield off of one side of each bearing and get them out of the way. And then when I put these in, the bottom bearing is going to go with that up, so it's open. If I put the top one in, it'll be facing down, so the outsides are sealed. And then we'll have our spacer in the middle. And that way when we grease our cavity, we'll fill this up in here and it'll get grease into our bearings. But then you also have to be careful and not do what I did, and I'm moving things around and got a piece of grass down in my brand new bearing. So I'll lay my upper bearing and I'll stay cleaner there. And then take my driver tool, put that together there, and I'll do the center one on camera, and then I'll probably shut the camera off while I put the rest of them together, because I still got sanding and cleaning up to do on all the other shafts. I picked the easiest one because that one's going to need a lot of work. It's got all kinds of stuff stuck to it and lots of rust. So, but I'll start out, I'll just put this up underneath them, get her lined up. I drive that bearing up in there, and there's a shoulder inside of here that on the top one it's about the thickness of a bearing. On the bottom it's probably a good inch and a quarter. And then I'll take a tube and drop down in the hole. Then we'll take the upper bearing and seal side up. We drive that down in, and then before I finish this up, I'll probably put some rust pit or some anti-seize on that where the pulleys go, but I'll get that lined up, coming up through like so. Yeah, that slides nice and easy. And then I got my new spacer and my original spacer, and where this has the wear, I'm going to put it in the middle where the spacers meet. And I guess I should have saw how this pulley slides on and off, because if it doesn't slide good on, oh yeah, it slides just fine. So, let that set. Push that up and put an anti-seize on there. We'll put our spacers on. And we got our pulley. Let it slide down on there, and of course our cupped washer with the cup side down. Our bolt. And then I'll just hit that lightly with the impact gun and tighten it up, grease it, and there's one basically back together. And it will. I got new blades, new fiber washers, and Grasshopper says every time you take a blade off, you should replace the bolt and the fiber washers. Well, I don't always do that. So bad on me, because fiber washers, replacing them depends on what kind of condition they're in. If they're still look good, I reuse them. And these bolts, they say that they stretch. Well, I will take all three of my bolts and I'll look at the threads, and you can stick them together, and you know, if you hit something hard enough, it will tighten that blade up and it will stretch the bolts. And this is designed to stretch and break before you do other damage to the deck. Now all three of my bolts look great, so I end up doing bolt, fiber washer, through the blade, fiber washer, and then I'll install it. And then that's another thing. When I tighten it up, I'll use my impact gun, and I'll put it on a low setting, because that Milwaukee impact, if you're not careful, you know, because even though, let's see, these are grade 8 3/8 spine thread bolts, that Milwaukee, even on number 3 setting, it'll snap this bolt and it'll stretch this bolt. So I'm going to put it on a low setting and tighten those up, but I'm going to do that after I get everything else assembled. Then I'll grab my gun. So they only had one idler pulley, so I'm gonna switch this one because it's on the lower belt, and then this one, when my new other pulley comes in, is right on top. It's easy to change. So I'll get some more assembled, then I'll bring the camera back. Alright, well, I got all my spindles up in there. I haven't tightened nothing, but I did take those new blades out just for the heck of it and make sure they was in balance, and then just barely touched them with the blade sharpener to get a good edge on them. And then we'll go underneath, and I'll tighten the blade bolts a little. Of course, I turned the gun way down so we don't over tighten. And then I'll go ahead while I'm here. Because the nut is welded onto the bracket, so that is a very simple pull it off and swap it out. I can change my socket. Then we can come over here and tighten these down. That sounds much better. And then we'll take our grease gun and I'm going to pump a lot of grease in, and chances are, let's see, yeah, I probably don't have enough to totally fill the cavity up, but I'll probably give each one about 15 pumps. And alright, so I ended up doing about 20 pumps. Oh. Hi, Cody. I had my assistant helping. He wanted to make sure I was getting it right. Let's try this again. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll have to change that because it's not sealing. But that shouldn't be that big a deal. After we get done there, then we get our belt on, which this one goes on real easy. About the only way it can go. But that sure don't look right. And then this is the tight one, getting the belt around there, which, I mean, it'll fit, it's just tight. There, and then of course, sunny and 80 degrees today. National Weather Service. Calm north winds. Yeah, this one definitely goes that way. Let me get them. Friday night temperatures back down to low 60s. For the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Sunny for both days. That on there. Oh. High temperatures and low 60s for the nights. That's good. Yeah, and that's right, because a simple explanation is I know the blades all turn this direction, so as they swing, they come around, cut the grass in the front, and they're pushing it all this way. And this idler is always on the slack side, and this is a pull side, so this is pulling toward this pulley, and this is a drive. Pulls here, across here, this is a pull, so it's coming in this direction, so that's our drive. Likewise, this around here, it's pulling that way, so our direction to travel is this way, so that is in the right spot. And we've got good tension, so. And then last but not least is to gotta make sure our coupler's on there, and then this just sets down on there, and then nuts and bolts hold it on. Okay, and then we got our drive for our blower for the bagger system back on there. Grasshopper's all ready and back together, ready to go for our test mow. That everything turned out real good. That you know, for this being a 30-year-old mower, and what it's got, yeah, I got, even with the camera I can't read it. We have 1,585 hours. And of course you notice it's got enough digits to go up into the 10,000s. That and you're watching this and thinking, well, my Grasshopper it's not that old. Well, I tell you what, 30-year-old mower, parts are still available, because basically this mower deck hasn't changed much on a front mount since they were first built, which I think was back in the 80s. That they had it, you know, parts that lasted and worked well, so they keep using them. That yeah, so if you've got a newer machine, don't be weary that this is going to apply to. I bet you, I haven't worked on one that's in the last year or two that was built, but it wouldn't surprise me if we're not using the same blades, same spindles, pulleys, and everything on a new one that this had back in '93. I've done doing our test mow, and which I don't know if you can tell, but even though I got that one blade that's a little off, you know, you just can't see it, you know, because, you know, I pan out across here, and I mean, the worst thing is I can't mow a straight line. But that turned out, I mean, it looks good. Everything looks level cut. Yeah, so that's going to conclude the deck bearing replacement and rehab on our Grasshopper. That I appreciate you watching. Like that thumbs up, give me a like. Those are always good for me, and the more subscribers I get, the better it is. You got any comments, feel free to leave them. If a comment looks like a question, I'll try and get around and post some kind of answer that I think there's a reply where I can actually reply straight to the person that made the comment. If I'm going to see if that works. Appreciate you watching. Have a good day.